know, no matter how many times I see it, that never gets old. G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to Subnautica with Mags, and today I'm starting up my storyline playthrough of the entirety of Subnautica. We're going to go through the entire game from start to finish. Now, this is being streamed live on Twitch as I'm playing through it. However, at least for the first few videos until we start getting to, well, some of the deeper and less visited parts of the map, I'm going to be doing small cut-down videos. Just having a look around and mainly going through the key storyline elements as I discover them and giving you a description of exactly what I'm doing through the game. So obviously we've started off in the Safe Shallows. We're in the southwestern corner, very close to the creepvine forest and not far from the red grass plains, which isn't a bad place to actually drop in. Now, like all survival games, the first thing we do is actually start gathering the resources we need, and I'm looking for a couple of key things here.
Copper is an essential component of all powered equipment. Your probability of survival has just increased to unlikely, but plausible.
Thank you, computer. So, the key things we're after here before we begin to expand on the main storyline is I want to establish a base, at least a small one to begin with before we head to the island and get the key components we actually need for, such as the multi-purpose room and the grow beds, to have a good established base. The other key things I wanted before heading to the island was the expanded oxygen tank and the sea glide. With these two here, it won't take that long to get to the island, and if I want to do a little exploring underwater on the way through, I have the oxygen to be able to do just that. Now, the key difficulty in the early part of the campaign is getting access to enough silver. Silver spawns very close to the 100-meter line, down in the red grass plains primarily, although you will find some of it in the creepvine forests. This means it's generally deeper than you have access to tech to reliably get to, and you do a lot of bobbing from the bottom to the surface and back again to actually be able to find it. The other ingredient that I need is silver, as silver's the base for the foundations, which you kind of need in the early game if you want to actually build a fairly nice looking base with a lot of glass, as it does increase the durability of your base. Now, the lead spawns in the same nodes as the silver, so you will tend to find it when you're looking for the silver along with supplies of gold, but it means that sandstone is split between 3 materials and it's entirely random what you're going to get.
Life on this planet grows in unusually distinct and diverse ecological biomes. Further study recommended.
And study is what this playthrough is all about, so that will not be a problem. So at this point, I've been playing for about half an hour. I've gotten enough materials to actually start building the required items that I actually need, and to have some of the items that I will need for future construction, such as the Sea Glide, ready and available. And speaking of the Sea Glide, getting the first part for the blueprint actually wasn't all that difficult, but the second part was rather elusive. I had actually found almost all of the parts for the sea moth before I managed to unlock the Sea Glide.
Short-range scans suggest this biome supports extensive biodiversity and connects to a number of small cave networks. Local scans show a nearby cave entrance, depth 90 meters, leading to an unknown environmental biome. Passing 100 meters, oxygen efficiency decreased.
And that would be the entrance to the jelly shroom caves, which are well beyond my capability of actually hitting at this point. I'll need the expanded oxygen tanks, and I will need the rebreather to be able to get down that far. So with all the basics needed gathered, it's time to build my first base. Now, I chose to build it on one of the spires in the red grass plains. This puts it slightly above the main sand bed, so sand sharks aren't such of an issue swimming around near the front door. And it also keeps the base quite separated from the starting pod in the Safe Shallows. You don't really need to build a base there because you have access to that pod. Now, the second reason is actually navigation. Once I have a beacon planted at this base, with one beacon in the red grass plains, one beacon in the Safe Shallows in the form of the Livepod, I can actually use that to triangulate my way around the map until I have access to a compass. Now, the first base parts are of course very basic, just a basic foundation to increase the durability of the base, a simple cross section, a simple glass door to access, and a single solar panel. This gives you the base entry in the core corridors, and the rest of it will have to wait until after I go to the island and get the multi-purpose room to expand. But it's time to start picking up pieces of the story. So first things first, we get the sea moth fragment from Livepod 17. which is actually within line of sight of our new base, and we find our first data pad. Livepod 17 crew log is as follows.
How's his log? It's the day of the crash. I don't know what the heck is happening. I'm scared and I'm not going outside. There are shadows in the water under the hatch, but I can't tell if they're rocks or aliens. And there's weird-looking caves nearby. The Aurora was carrying everything needed to build the phase gate. Mobile vehicle bays, bioreactors, propulsion cannons. It had a cinema. There was a zero-G gym. My cafe. I don't understand how we're here now. I don't know why no one's coming for me.
So, Livepod 17 Survivor was the cafe owner on board the Aurora, and clearly somebody who wasn't prepared for survival. Very, very nervous and scared about what was going on outside of the Livepod, which you can't really blame him. So having collected the data out of Livepod 17 and having managed to find the material requirements I needed for the expanded air tank, it was time to head back to the Livepod. But of course, I've got to get into a knife fight with the local wildlife. Of course, the local wildlife did have to cheat and go 2v1. Bastards. So with these two driven off, it's time to return to the Livepod and build ourselves the expanded air tank. And with that, I can continue my exploration to find the sea moth. Once I've got that, we can go to the island. But not before the standard welcome to Subnautica fireworks display.
Emergency. A quantum detonation has occurred in the Aurora's drive core. The reactor will reach a supercritical state in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Thankfully, not far behind that, we finally found our Sea Glide fragment. So all we've got to do is put this one back together, and we can go and get the storyline components from the island itself, as well as what we need to actually finish the expansion of our first base.
The Sea Glide will increase your effective exploration range. For your safety, please pack supplies for long journeys and stay within 5 kilometers of the nearest life pod or habitat.
Absolutely no bloody chance of that happening, computer. But regardless of not following the computer's advice, we've managed to make our way to the island, and it's time to begin exploring.
Picking up multiple energy signatures on the island's surface.
Of course you are. So of course there are 3 habitats on the island. There is one on each of the mountain peaks on the island, and one that sits in a valley on the far side of the island in between. We need to go to all 3. There is multiple PDAs with storyline elements on board them. There is also all of the supplies we're going to need, including indoor and outdoor grow beds. It's going to have the observation deck and all the multi-purpose rooms. But before we can do that, we need to take out the local crab population, because they are going to cause us some problems. Of course, the jumpy little mongrels had absolutely no interest in me actually hacking them down, so it took a little bit of chasing. So having murdered all of the local fauna with our frankly undersized survival knife, it was time to quickly scan everything down, as this base contains almost everything that we will need to complete our main base. And on top of that, it also contains our first alien artifact.
New blueprint acquired.
Right, so with that one scanned, we can put that in the inventory and we'll save that one for later. We will be needing that. It also contains a number of PDAs, but I'll wait till we've collected all of the PDAs from the island before we actually start going through them. Our next stop, of course, is the observation outpost on the easternmost mountain. Here we collect the observatory as well as a number of small single plant pot plants for placement inside of our bases. A chair for decoration and of course another PDA.
New blueprint acquired.
After having finished up here and letting the sun come up, we move to the westernmost observatory. Here we get an indoor grow bed as well as a few extra items in crates and another PDA. And from this point, it's just a simple matter of heading back to the original base to pick up a couple of examples of the different fruit types, mainly the Chinese potato, the marble melons, and the lantern fruits, to take back and plant in the new base so we have an internal supply of food. And with that, it's time to head back to our base. But let's have a listen to those PDAs we picked up while we were on the island.
This island is a godsend. Look out of the window. No predators, fresh food.
No building materials, nothing left of the ship, and your kid says we're gonna starve without more grow beds. Speak up, kid.
It's true, Father. The natural growth rates are too slow to keep supporting us.
All I'm saying is ocean's got us surrounded. No use hiding. Sooner or later, we'll get our feet wet.
The rest of your life may have been a fight, Maida, but I've made my decision. You want to forfeit your emergency pay to take a swim? Go ahead.
Believe me, I'm thinking on it.
Okay, so this is the voice log of the survivors that built the bases and observation posts on the island. They are the survivors of a ship that crashed before the Aurora did, called the Degasi. From the sounds of it, we have 3 survivors, a father and son, and 1 woman. At this point, they seem to have just made it to the island, but they're having trouble finding building materials to actually establish their habitat. And surprisingly, even with the abundance of plants and trees that we saw on the island, they apparently would not have enough food over the long term to actually sustain all 3 of them. So they were trying to set up some kind of farming. Essentially, they're doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing in the game right now.
Son, I said wait for the storm to pass. Your life's more valuable to me than a plant patch.
You stopped being in charge when the ship you were captaining sunk.
I'll stop being in charge when you take charge of yourself.
Say, Chief. Chief,
What?
you know how to drain those grow beds of 40 tons of stormwater? Or how to conjure food from the air?
I know how to prioritize.
I'm just saying, if that's so, what's your boy's life worth to you today? If tomorrow you're gonna be so hungry you start wondering what he tastes like, let him go deal with the plants.
Son, go deal with the plants.
Bart, Torgal has disembarked the habitat.
Interfere with my family again, and when rescue arrives, I will leave you here. Do you understand me?
No rescue coming, Chief. Not in time. No staying here neither. This rain keeps falling, sooner or later this place will be buried. The only choice we got is whether to get buried with it.
Now this is an interesting one for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we don't actually have any storms or rain in Subnautica, so hopefully that is something that's actually going to be added over time. But the main habitat where we picked this up was half buried. The storm in that recording may well be the one that actually caused the landslide that buried that base, forcing the survivors to abandon it. We also heard from the son that the father was the captain of the Degasi. And last of all, pretty clear side of tension on who's in charge between the captain and the female survivor. They clearly do not get along.
You see, Chief, you brought us to this sodden planet. Told us we'd see a lush payday. Now what do we got some 6 weeks later? A dead crew, a habitat that's half buried, food washed away.
I suppose the executive decisions would be better left to someone with your extensive experience of hitting people in the face.
I know enough not to take unscheduled detours to uncharted planets. That's something you don't want to learn the hard way.
Easy to judge a decision in hindsight. Harder to come up with a plan of your own.
Got one already. We take what we can carry and hunker down in a cave somewhere. I scouted a site, a couple 100 meters deep, lots of metal deposits.
How do you imagine we'd live?
With ready access to building materials, like damn queens, a couple of water filters, a bioreactor, fresh fish. But Chief, we'll eat seaweed salad and drink our own urine if that's what it takes. All that matters is, do you got something better?
Send the coordinates to my PDA. I'll review your proposal.
So this PDA log come with the coordinates to this second base or potential second base location. Couple of things here. Obviously the base was destroyed and their food supplies were also ruined as well, so they had to abandon the island. So that storm was the catalyst to them abandoning the place. It does seem like all three of them managed to survive the storm, and the planned location for the base is around about where I am now, but 200 meters down. That's in the Jelly Shroom Caves. It also seems like Maida, the female survivor, is trying to take control of the group from the captain. The selection for the Jelly Shroom Cave as a base location was her idea.
What is that thing?
I don't know. I found it outside in the sand.
Part of another ship?
None I've ever seen.
It's not even scratched.
Don't fool around with it. It might be worth something.
Stand down, Chief. If it were gonna crumble to dust, it would have done so when I picked it up.
It's glowing.
We're not the first people to come to this planet.
People. Maybe. Could be aliens. Could be the damn sea monsters for all we know. One thing for sure, we ain't gonna find out by staying here.
Now this is from log 4, so this is after the avalanche has destroyed the habitat, but before they've left the island. And this is clearly talking about the purple tablet that we found inside of the multi-purpose room. Now it's pretty clear that they didn't have any idea exactly what it was, and that's likely why they left it behind in the base. It was just something to carry that they weren't sure whether or not it was valuable, or even useful to their future survival. Now the purple tablet had to be on the island all along, because the island floats. The storm is likely what uncovered the tablet for the Degasi survivors to actually find, but it couldn't have washed up off the bottom of the ocean to the top of the floating island, so it had to already have been there. That means there's possibly more interesting tech floating around on that island, so it might be worth going back there at some point in the future.
Chief's log, 5 weeks since the crash. The only other survivors are my son, Bart, and Maida, the cut-price mercenary I commissioned for the journey. After days drifting in the Livepod, rain hammering on the roof, the weather cleared and we washed up here. I had Maida salvage the Degasi wreck, set Bart to finding us a stable source of food. His education is paying off sooner than I'd anticipated. Our only problem is Maida. She says the weather's going to turn. I say she's finding excuses to risk our lives. I imagine she's not gonna weaken her life without a physical altercation, and she's itching for a fight. In every judgment she makes, things go from bad to worse. If she had my experience, she'd have more faith. Humans have spent millennia specializing in how to shackle nature to our will. This planet won't cause us any new problems. My one task now is to keep us alive, as comfortably as possible, until the insurance company arranges rescue. In this part of space, that could be months, or even years.
Okay, so this one is the personal log of Paul Torgal, and this is probably one of the most telling logs and explains a lot of the previous ones. Paul Torgal is the captain of the Degasi. His son Bart Torgal is the son from the previous audio logs, and our female survivor is Maida, who is apparently a mercenary who was hired to go with the Degasi to act as protection. Now it also mentions Bart Torgal's education. He is clearly a qualified young man, judging by the fact that he was applied to organise the food and sort of research the area, and was able to work out from the previous logs exactly how much food that they were going to need to sustain the three of them. He seems to be some kind of biologist, if I had to make a guess. So the story of the Degasi up until this point seems to be the Degasi was a ship of unknown type that was heading to a destination. It's pretty obvious, we don't know where that destination was, but it diverted from that course to come here. Now we don't know why it actually diverted. From the previous logs, specifically log 4 where they found the tablet, the survivors were surprised to find any sign of intelligent life, human or otherwise, on this planet, so clearly they didn't come here after receiving a distress signal like the Aurora did. However, Maida the mercenary indicated in the previous logs that whatever did make them come here, the captain had thought that it would be worth a lot of money. Regardless, the ship crashed, and from the sounds of it, the crew was adrift in their life pod for anywhere up to 5 weeks, before they were eventually washed ashore on the floating island. There they established themselves a base once they had stripped the Degasi wreck of the materials they needed in order to construct the base, and set themselves up with food. And then a storm hit the island. The storm washed away their food beds, destroyed their crops, and destroyed their outpost, forcing them to flee the island, but not before they found an artifact of unknown origin. The captain seems to be rather conservative, concerned with the life of his son and wanting to survive for long enough to receive a rescue, and he is sure that there would be one coming from the Altera Corp insurance company that would likely come searching for his vessel. Maida seems far more aggressive. She wants to force herself into the environment to get the best resources she can in order to survive in the best condition that she can, again until a rescue arrives. Her interest in money may also indicate that she wants to get into the water and start exploring so that she can find whatever it was of value and take it with her. Bart, on the other hand, seems to be primarily interested with the environment itself and the creatures and plant life living within it, which would make sense as a scientist of some description. Anyways, from that point we know that they left the island, and from there they likely went towards the Jellyshroom Caves. And we do have the coordinates for the proposed location of that base, so we can explore there later. As for my own survival, as you can see, I did a little bit of exploring after.
Is a fast, safe mode of transport, but remember that swimming is good for your glutes and endorphin levels.
And with that, the Seamoth is built. We have access to the vehicle construction bay, so we can build future vehicles without too much of an issue. We have the supplies we need in order to operate the Seamoth. So at this point, it was time for us to sign off. However, in my exploration, finding the parts that I needed to actually build the Seamoth, I did come across one more PDA. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching. This will be continuing through, as I have planned to play through the entire storyline. As I said, I will be streaming the actual live gameplay on Twitch, and at least for the moment, the videos on YouTube will be cut down in much the manner that you see here. Anyways, ladies and gents, remember to check the video description down below for links to my Twitch, as well as all of my social media and my Patreon for those who would like to support the channel. Also, remember to click that like button, share and subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time, take care, and I'll catch you in the depths.
This is the first time I've seen sunlight in months. After all that time in the deep, I'd been dreaming of it. Now that I'm back here, I'm finding it hard to enjoy alone. Father was right. We should never have left this place. We shouldn't have gone so deep. They do not want us down there. Despite my best efforts, ill health is taking hold of me. The visions are getting worse. Marguerite and Father are now part of the ecosystem of this incredible planet. It's reassuring to know that when I go, I'll join them. Until then, well, there's always the view.